today at our CHC project, and I just thought that I would jump on and give you a bit of an update. Now, this week is Autism Acceptance Week, so that is from the 27th of March to the 2nd of April, with the 2nd of April being Autism Acceptance Day, and actually the whole month of April being Autism Acceptance Month. Why am I telling you this? I'm autistic. And very soon I'm going to be starting to work on one of the elective units in the CHC package, which is CHC CCS 035, Support People with Autism Spectrum Disorder. So I thought, what a great week for me to be able to jump on and talk about how I will be approaching this unit, but also talking you through some of the things that I've observed in this unit as an autistic person. Now, the purpose of this unit is to train people in supporting autistic people. So I have that view when I'm looking at this unit, and in my view, as an autistic person, supporting autistic people means understanding their needs and also understanding their preferences. So the first thing that I would like to point out in this unit is the title of the unit, Support People with Autism Spectrum Disorder. And you'll have noticed that right through this video I have referred to myself as autistic, or an autistic person, not a person with autism. So generally what is taught, and actually when I was doing my 2 education degrees, one of which is in inclusive education, I was actually taught that person first language is the way to go. But actually when you speak to a lot of autistic people, you'll find that most autistic people prefer identity first language, so autistic person rather than person with autism. So just a little observation in the title of the unit. So if I scroll down to the elements and performance criteria, again it uses that person with autism spectrum disorder. That's something that's actually a diagnostic term, so it's not something that I'm going to be able to change in the unit, but it will be worth mentioning the fact that among the autistic community, a lot of people don't necessarily feel comfortable with the use of the term disorder. So that's something that will certainly be incorporated into the unit in terms of the autistic perspective on this diagnostic terminology. Now, there is actually one piece of performance criteria that I find particularly interesting in this unit, and that is 3.1, conduct support activities in the context of the underpinning values, philosophies and standards of the sector. Now, this is quite interesting because there's nothing that specifies what these values, philosophies and standards are, and in my experience there are a wide range of these, and sometimes they can actually be quite harmful. And by harmful I mean that there's quite an outdated view that autism is something that can be cured or autistic people can be changed, and these sorts of approaches are harmful to autistic people. So I do find it quite interesting that there's no clarification there. It's a very ambiguous statement where there is a lot of, I'm going to say, misguidance in terms of values, philosophies, etc. So yeah, very interesting. A tip for anybody that's actually looking at this unit and are working on developing it, please make sure that you're referring to organisations, advocacies, etc. that are either run by autistic people or supported by autistic people. That would be my top tip there. Okay, so if I then look at the knowledge evidence, now there are some parts of the knowledge evidence that I feel really positive about, like great, that's great that they have that requirement in there. Unfortunately, in some instances there's not an awful lot of guidance, which I haven't really come across an awful lot of out there literature that talks about some of these things that people would actually have to delve into conversations within the autistic community. And by autistic community, I mean actually autistic people, not autism researchers, to find this sort of information. So I find it quite interesting that they've included it here. But anyway, so the second piece of knowledge evidence is current data and facts on autism spectrum disorder. And the second component of that is evidence-based treatments, therapies and interventions across the lifespan, which I find to be concerning, especially the term treatment, because treatment indicates that there is a cure. There is no cure for autism, and most autistic people have no desire to be cured of their autism. We're usually quite happy with it. So because there isn't an awful lot of guidance here, and we have this evidence-based, it does concern me that perhaps people working on this unit may not necessarily realise that there is actually evidence, and some quite skewed evidence, and things that have been proven to be skewed evidence, that they could come across that and actually embed into this qualification. So that's just me as an autistic person saying that this is something that I feel is concerning, and that there are a lot of treatments and therapies out there that may well have evidence that backs them up, but they might not necessarily be as harmless as they masquerade to be. So scrolling a little bit further down, one thing that I think is really good is that it does indicate that there needs to be a coverage of diversity within autism. And this is something that is really important because the vast majority of research around autism has actually been focused on white males and the white male representation of autism. And actually autism is present in all genders, it is present across all cultures, but they're very, very under-researched. So I do appreciate the fact that that is in here. In particular, it does mention LGBTIQA+ communities, which I think is a wonderful addition to this. So scrolling a little bit further down, so another thing that I've noticed here, so there's a piece of criteria that says process for diagnosing autism spectrum disorder, and it mentions the DSM-5, which is a diagnostic tool that is used. Great. However, they don't mention the ADOS. And the ADOS is actually also another diagnostic tool that's often used alongside the DSM-5 in the diagnostic process. And actually, the ADOS is the most up-to-date. There have been recent changes to the ADOS that has started to include, the diverse representations of autism, in particular, female representations of autism, and it does acknowledge the fact that many women are diagnosed later in life, myself included, and the DSM-5, to my knowledge, is quite resistant to that. So it's very interesting that they've mentioned the DSM-5 and not the ADOS. Just one last thing that I've noticed that I think is a positive thing, is that part of the knowledge evidence is facts, myths and misconceptions associated with autism spectrum disorder. I really appreciate the fact that this unit is trying to address that. I do think it would be really great if that was actually specified what those facts, myths and misconceptions are. I am very conscious of the fact that there are many people that will work on developing this unit that maybe aren't particularly overly aware of autism. And the reason that I'm so passionate about working on this unit is because we desperately, desperately need an autistic perspective on training people to support autistic people. And so I really cannot wait to get my teeth into this unit. I've got a few core units I need to finish working on first before I can jump into the electives. But I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about having conversations with connections that I have in the autistic community about this unit and about what we can make sure is included in this unit that really sets support workers up for working positively and constructively with autistic people, alongside autistic people, to really make a change in how autistic people are supported in Australia.